That song got me. It got me. I was like, whoo, it fits me. It fits me. Yep. And it goes with what we're talking about today. So last week we talked about how we're all called. Because only like 4 people in the room raised their hands when I said, okay, just so we know, how many people do feel like you are called for a specific thing or a specific work? Like 4 people in the whole church were like, me? Everybody else was like, not me. I'm not it. So we got through that. We convinced everybody we all have a part to play. We all are called. We all have a purpose. So last week, David was secretly anointed king, which means Saul is on the throne, and Saul doesn't know that the person that will replace him has already been chosen. So David gets secretly anointed king, but then David goes back to life as normal. He goes back to tending to the sheep, doing chores, doing whatever his father needs him to do. So as is known to be the case back in the day, a battle had to break out, okay? They had to pick a fight. Somebody had to pick a fight. So, everybody knows the story of David and Goliath, right? Mm-hmm. Little David, huge Goliath, that kind of thing. We talk about it a lot. It's one of my favorites. Because if you really look at us, though, look at culture, look at our society, we love a good underdog story. If you look at the movies that do crazy good at the box office, it's usually an underdog story. It's this person or this group of people who are not supposed to be able to defeat evil empire or whoever the evil part is in the movie, and yet they go and they do it. We love a good underdog story. One of my favorite movies, and I think one of Connie's favorite movies, is a football movie called Facing the Giants. Same kind of deal. This team is a ragtag, messed up bunch of folk. They're not supposed to be able to go all the way to the championship, much less win the championship. So it takes their story, and they're the underdogs, and you're like rooting for them the whole time. We love a good underdog story. But this time, when I was reading David and Goliath, I focused on another piece of the story. Because for some reason, we read it and we think about, oh, look, the little guy beats the big guy, and yay, the underdog won. But there's this one part. So David goes, I'm going to do some paraphrasing. David goes, he hears the giant making the threats. He starts asking people, what's going on? What is this about? Oh, he comes out every day and says this junk to us. And the king has said whoever defeats him will get one of the king's daughters and lots of riches. And David's like, huh. So David goes to the next group and goes, what is this about? What's going on? They tell him the same story. So he asks 3 different times, what's the deal? What's going on here? So word gets back to Saul. So there's this dude out here asking about this. We think you should talk to him. So David goes in front of Saul. If I can find my place. I hate it when I do that. Okay. So David goes, and he's standing before Saul. And David says, Master, don't give up hope. I'm ready to go and fight this Philistine. And Saul answers David, you can't go and fight him. You're too young and inexperienced. And he's been at this fighting business since before you were born. David said, I've been a shepherd, tending sheep for my father. Whenever a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I would go after it, knock it down, and rescue the lamb. If it turned on me, I'd grab it by the throat, wring its neck, and kill it. Lion or bear made no difference. And I'll do the same to this Philistine pig who is taunting the troops of God. God, who delivered me from the teeth of the lion and the claws of the bear, will deliver me from this Philistine. Saul said, go, and God help you. Then Saul outfitted David as a soldier in armor. He put his bronze helmet on his head and belted his sword on him over the armor. David tried to walk, but he could hardly budge. David told Saul, I can't even move with all this stuff on me. I'm not used to this. And he took it all off. Then David took his shepherd's staff, selected 5 smooth stones from the brook, and put them in the pocket of his shepherd's pack. And with his sling in his hand, he approached Goliath. And what happens then? Goliath mouths off, "Who are you to come at me? Look at you. They send the runt of the litter. Go sit down, boy." And David says, "You can talk all you want. But today, I will defeat you." Goliath laughs. Now rewind. What happened? David was called. David was called last week, where he was anointed secretly as the next king. But David was called on this day to what? To face a giant. And when David says, "I can do this," what's the first thing that happens? Saul goes, "No, you cannot. You're inexperienced. You're too young." So the 4 people that raised your hands last week, you knew you were called to do something. How many times did somebody else come along and go, "No, you can't. You're not ready. You're not experienced enough. You don't have enough education. You ain't lived enough. You can't do what you're called to do. So you need to go sit down and let the big people handle it." David wasn't swayed. David said, "No, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm called for. This is what my purpose is today." Saul gives up. Okay, fine. And then what happened? Okay, fine. You can go do it, but you're going to do it my way. You're going to wear my stuff. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to put this on, this on, this. Anybody got that happen when you felt called and you tried to step out into it? Somebody wanted to say, "You got to do it my way. You got to follow my rule book. You got to follow what I say. That's the only way you're going to be able to do this. I know you say you called, but you still got to do it this way." You know how many people leave the church? Because they come in, they're excited, they want to participate, they want to be a part of things, and somebody looks at them and says, "You got to do it my way. Has to be my way or no way." And then what happens to them? They either go sit down and never offer to do anything again, or they leave the church. This is especially true with the millennials. The millennials will step forward and say, "Hey, we want to do it." And then all the old farts of the church will be like, "Okay, but you can't do this, and you can't say that, and you got to do it this way, on this day, at this time. Because if you don't follow this formula, Holy ain't going to show up. You can forget it. Holy ain't going to be with you, and you're going to lose." We always want to have it our way. But what did David say? "Okay, thanks, King, but no thanks." Why? Because that's not who David was. David knew he had to face this authentically. He had to be true to David. He had to be true to David's calling. See, God calls you and God calls me, and we ain't called to the same thing all the time. But if we are called to the same thing, guess what happens? We ain't going to get the same tool bag. Your tools are going to be different than my tools. I'm going to do it my way. You're going to do it your way. We don't all have to be the same. And in fact, that would be very, 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 very boring if we all were the same. So David said, "Saul, thanks, but I'm going to go out there with no armor." Now, if I'm Saul, I'd probably turn around and snicker behind David's back, going, "What is this little fool doing? He's going to go get killed by that big old mountain of a man." Why? Because Saul was already having difficulty. Saul had already, the reason a new king had been anointed without Saul knowing it is because Saul had already betrayed his calling. Saul had already went a different direction than what God told him to go. See, Saul was already teetering. So here's David going, "No, I got to do it my way. I got my tools, my toolbox. That's your toolbox." So my 4 people that felt called last week, 3 of y'all in the front row. Nope, you. When you felt called and you tried to go do your job, did somebody try to say, "Here, use my toolbox"? Were you eager to go do the job? Or did you be like, "Nah, I'm good, thanks"? Me and my granny had this conversation yesterday. My granny comes from a background, a church background, where the preacher stands at the front of the church and the preacher says, "Thus saith the Lord God." And all the people in the church say, "Okay." The preacher tells the people what God says and the people say, "Okay." Then the people leave their little church that 9 times out of 10 is full of a whole bunch of white people. They leave that church and they decide they're going on a trip. They're going on a missions trip. They're going to go on a missions trip and they're going to go to a brown country. And when they get there, they're going to look at the brown country and go, you got to worship the way white people worship in America. Y'all doing it wrong. And that's a missions trip. In that group, in the way they do things. They take their toolbox, which I'm not saying that their toolbox doesn't work for them, but they take their toolbox and they go to people that don't know nothing about no worship in America, only a white God and all that kind of stuff, and go, here's the toolbox, you got to use it that way, only that way. It would be like me looking at you and going, you see that square right there, that square little cutout in the wall? Here's a round bolt, go put it in it. It doesn't fit. What Saul was trying to do to David wasn't fitting. David had to be true to his call. And he had to do it using the tools that God had given him. So David goes to face the giant. How many of you feel like you're facing some giants? See, I wake up every day and I pick the phone up and the little Facebook icons right there. And I'm like, And then I look this way and then oh no. Oh no. And then it's scroll fast. And like everything I see makes something inside of me go, how do we face this? How do we face this? And the tools in my toolbox, are they going to be enough? Here's the deal. No. And here's why. A lot of what we're facing now in America, you can't go face it by yourself and I can't go face it by myself. We all got to face it together. It's going to take every dang tool in every dang toolbox for us to get through this. And when somebody comes at you and says, that's not your calling, that's not your job, here's what I want you to say. David wasn't in Saul's army. He still went and faced Goliath. Or how about this? Jesus came. Jesus said, love everybody. If I'm going to love everybody, that means this is my job. I do have to stand up for what's right. I do have to stop people from being oppressed. I do have to say, you can't tell people how to experience holy. You got to let them do it their way. You can't make them do it your way. That's right. I have to be true to me. And I have to be true to who I think holy has revealed holy to be. I have to trust. And that's why the song got me. It's hard sometimes to trust. It's hard to say, okay, God, I get it. You got me and all's good. Because there are a lot of days you don't feel like all is good. There are a lot of days where I peek out and I see my own Goliath and I'm like, no, I'm going back to bed. I don't want to, not today. But then I think of Constance, K-Dell's woman. And Constance will post on Facebook, not today, Satan. My favorite time was she had a picture of a certain orangish politician and it said, not today, Satan. So when I look at the world, I'm like, I can't today. I think about, but what if Jesus had said that Jesus couldn't? What if they told Jesus, we're going to kill you if you keep telling these people all about love, 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 love? And Jesus said, okay, I'm just going to go home now and sit down. I'll be done. I'll go sit in the corner and be quiet. Y'all can do what y'all want to do. What would have happened? Lives wouldn't have been changed. Love would not have found a way to be shared the way it was beginning to be shared then. We probably still wouldn't be arguing over it now. What happens if we just pull the covers up over our head and say, no, y'all, Goliath will have to stand out there and yell, I'm not doing it. I can't. You know what David did? David saw the big old ugly thing, mountain of a beast. Oh my God, I just had a song pop in my head. Beauty and the Beast. Kill the beast. Anyway. David sees this mountain of a man and he knows, because of the way things worked then, if I go to this man and I do not win, that army captures my brothers. because his brothers were in Saul's army. They were there. And that's the way it worked back then. You would send out your best fighter. They'd duke it out. The winner won. They got everybody. They would run in and shoot, you're mine. So David, as he's looking at Goliath, he knows if this doesn't go well, they win, and my brothers and all my friends are going to be captured. You telling me he wasn't just a little bit afraid? But what? He looked at Goliath. God, that's a mountain, and I'm going to need you to move it. Because if you don't move it, we all going down. And instead of running from the mountain of a problem and hiding in the corner or in the bed with the covers pulled up, tucked in tight, David ran to the problem. David went to face it. See, things get put in your path sometimes. And I ain't saying they put there for holy purposes. They just, sometimes things happen. And you got to figure out what you're going to do. You're either going to go to it and then through it, or you're going to run from it. David didn't run from it. David ran to it. Why? Because in that moment, David knew a secret that Saul didn't know. David knew that he had been called by holy for holy purposes. David knew that he was the next king of Israel. He didn't know what that would look like. He didn't know what tools he would need in the toolbox. But he knew at that point, he had to be a person that said, you've called me, I trust you, I will be faithful. So I will stand here with just this slingshot and these 5 stones. And if you don't move that mountain, I'm trusting you to find a way to help them wimps back there behind me run out here and take it down. It was about trusting God. David was trying to show Saul, because Saul had lost his way. He was trying to show Saul, he was trying to show Israel, this is who we are. We are Israel. We are God's chosen people. We are the people that God brought up out of Egypt. We are the people that God set free. If we're set free by holy, how you going to let this mountain of a man come get us and haul us back into captivity? Is holy who we say holy is or not? So David ran to it. And David said, you're going to go down. Goliath laughed and said, yeah, okay. David says, yeah, don't blame me for laughing. I don't know, but I do know this. The God that delivered me from the lion is going to deliver me from you. Amen. The God that delivered me from the bear is going to deliver me from you. And when I'm done with you, the next thing that comes up, God's going to get me through that too. See, we're in a bad time. We got bad stuff happening. We got things going on that I'm not supposed to talk about in church apparently, but oh well. We got all this junk happening, all these bad things happening, and all we got to do is trust. And we have to remember, what has holy brought me through? And if holy got me through that, ain't holy going to help me find my way through this? See, holy never leaves you, never forgets you. We say it every week. Never forgets you, never leaves you, always loves you. Is this mountain of a problem going to be your defeat? Only if you let it be. Because we can hold hands, we can join arms, and if we get enough of us, we might not have a slingshot that can take that mountain down, because it's a pretty big mountain. But if you get enough of us joining forces, get up, and we hold hands. This is going to be our little mountain. Get on the other side. And we hold hands. What have we just done to that mountain? The mountain's in the middle. We've surrounded the mountain. What happens if I surround this mountain and I start, holy, you got to have your way with this mountain. And if every person is holding hands and saying we ain't going to let this mountain defeat us, keep standing here, what are we doing to this mountain as we come closer and closer to it? You're isolating it and you're blocking its growth. It can't go anywhere. Thank y'all. It can't go anywhere. It can't get any bigger. Why? Because we're stopping it. All of us surround it and we cut it off. What did we learn last week? You put a seed in the ground, what happens? You water it, got to get some sunshine, and then it can grow. If you cut off all the ways a mountain can grow, what's going to happen? I'm really getting this wrong. Science doesn't support me, but roll with it. the mountain kind of is under here. But anyway, point being, for illustrative purposes, if you surround the mountain, all of us, people that are saying, Holy, you have called me. Holy, I will listen to you. Holy, I will be true and use my toolbox and not Sally's toolbox, not Marcy's toolbox, my toolbox. And if we all come at this thing together and we trust you and we know that you've delivered us repeatedly, you have stood with us and you will stand with us again. And this mountain will move. It will move. Why? Because the holy love burns here. And in every heart that seeks justice, in every heart that tries to be loved in the world, don't matter how ugly the world gets, you're beautiful. And eventually, that holy beauty wins. You just can't run from it. You have to grab your toolbox and run to it. And all the people said,